Well, greetings everybody, and welcome to our what's such our first Inworld review special of the year 2020. To be precise, it's the 8th of March, but it's still the first of the series for 2020. Now, we don't just do the show as often as we might do these days, but one feature that I suddenly realised today we've always had anyway is it's kind of an annual interview with Kevin Feenan. Looking in my records, I suddenly realised March the 9th last year was the last time we did one, and lo and behold, it's March the 8th this year. So, yeah, that's as good as a year, isn't it? Anyway, Kevin Feenan, who's known in world as Felon Coramel, or in world in most places anyway, is the convener of something called VWBPE. VWBPE stands for, as well as being a tongue twister, stands for Virtual World's Best Practices in Education. And it happens every year. I'm usually based, I think this year, totally based in the virtual world of Second Life. And the theme this year is Stellar. Not as in the girl's name, but the one with the R, which refers to the stars in the infinite universe. And I'll be asking him in a second where on earth that came from. Um, but we are joined, as I say, by Kevin Feenan. I'm going to be calling him Kevin for the rest of it. And also sitting next to me is James Atloud, who's also involved in education, so may help with the questions. But James, more importantly, is tweaking the knobs that you can't see, bringing lots of camera positions and my desktop to you as part of this program.
I'm not
But
an
without
educator myself, but I play one at my university.
Yeah, well, a university is an educational establishment, so
That's
there's a
right.
connection there. Yeah, yeah, we get the idea. Yeah, and we certainly have an interest in it for sure.
Yes.
Right, as we all do. I'm not an educator. My sister is, oddly enough, um, or was. Right. Anyway, moving on. Moving on. So, welcome to the show, Kevin.
Thank you.
Good to see you again.
You as
I would
well.
actually ask if you can point at your own face and click on it so you're facing forward, because at the moment you are staring at the empty seat next to
Yeah,
you.
and
I am. I'm according to what
Oh,
I
yeah,
see.
that's
I'm
good. You're
staring
now,
forward.
yeah, now you are. Yeah, clicking on your own face normally sorts that so you're facing
could,
All right. Well,
forward.
there we go.
yeah, could you
Yeah.
try that also, Mel?
Oh, well, do we work on my mesh? I thought I already had
How,
done.
how,
It
how many
might.
years have we been at this?
Oh,
I know it's funny. I look okay on my monitor, so it must be
yeah, I think you have to send it to my monitor, I guess. If you could
Yeah,
try and
it's
right.
recenter again.
Yeah. Let's have a.
it's open sending,
Actually,
open sending.
my mesh one is not doing anything at all.
Okay.
Certainly. Anyway, we're okay. Anyway, the main thing is you got a nice facial shot of
I
Kevin.
have your
So
face.
I mean, oh, very good, very good. It's not worth seeing anyway. It ain't got no eyes at the moment. Blasted meshy thing. It's a mess of a mesh. Let's get on with it. Right. So as I say, welcome back, Kevin. Now, actually, you of course handle Rockcliffe University, which is an online university in Weldon, Second Life too. So maybe before we actually move into the conference, any updates from Rockcliffe? It's been a while.
It has the a lot of what we've been doing has been working with a lot of other education groups. So we've been working with the University of New Mexico, the University of Texas. There's a couple of Nova University in Florida is another one that we've been working with. Um, KAG University out in Turkey. We've been working with them for a little bit. So, we've been becoming more of a consortium as we go along. It's been slow in coming up, and there's a few other things that are hopefully going to materialize over the next couple of months. But it's going along slowly but surely, and right? And then, of course, we
Uh,
do this with this conference, and we work with a lot of other educators on a one-on-one basis as well. So
uh. Now it's actually kind of appropriate, actually. I'm sure you've got your own feelings on this. So it's been in the news. Well, we've been on the news today, but or no, last few weeks we've been coming up with uh, the compelling use case for virtual worlds and online, for the workplace as well as social and education, of course, because of the virus that is basically more and more people every day are being uh, well told to stay indoors is probably the politest thing that's happening in some
They
places. You've got in Italy, so they've got 4 million people quarantined, which is horrifying a number. Um, this is I mean, don't want to make light of it, but isn't this finally the ultimate use case for social
it
worlds? We've been gone at it but on for years about saving your air traffic, fuel and commuting fuel and everything else like that. But now now it could actually be dangerous to be outside or at a major conference.
well, I mean, within reason, yeah. I mean, the part of what I also do is my full time consulting work is actually with Health Canada. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of
Mm.
things that have been excuse me that have been happening over the last several couple of months since this whole thing has started, and it's not a question of everybody necessarily being in a panic, but certainly it is the foremost thing that's come to the top of everybody's agenda at this particular
Mm.
point in time.
Mhm.
So it's really kind of especially in behind the scenes as well, seeing some of the different things that have been going on in terms of preparations up here in Canada and what have you. The To be honest, it's a lousy use case for virtual worlds in terms of the compelling reason for it to
Oh
happen.
yeah.
Notwithstanding, right, this is actually very it does provide a very good example of the benefits of an environment like this if it's used appropriately. Like any other tool, this
Oh
can
yeah.
be misused, right? And there's lots of other things that sort of go along with an environment like this that you have to be sort of cognizant of and aware of. But on the whole, I mean, when we're talking about doing a conference and doing a conference virtually, you
Mm.
get an environment like Second Life, you get an environment like Open Simulator, and the possibilities are far more um, far more available for organizations to come in and do some really interesting things with inside these environments
Mm.
that you would never think possible as part of a real life conference. And in fact, we have had a few people that have now starting to take more of an interest in terms of what we've been doing at Rockcliffe because we have 10 years of experience doing this exact particular type of thing.
Sure.
How do you get people into this environment? How do you get them set up? How do you get them trained? How do you get the knowledge? How do you get them past the learning curve? I mean, it's not just
Mm.
a matter of. I mean, as you know, I mean, it's not just a matter of jumping in here and saying, "Ta-da, I'm here."
I
Um,
wish.
yeah, well, I
Yeah.
mean, and I mean, I've been saying this for years, right? Like, I mean, a lot of people have said, "Oh, Second Life, Open Simulator, the learning curve on this thing is really steep." It's not. It's
Mm.
for the amount of things, for the amount of productivity that you can do inside an environment like this. The learning curve for this environment is substantially less than for just about any other type of virtual environment, unless you're willing to pay some other company hundreds of thousands of
But you
dollars
can
to.
you can make the same comparison about I don't know Photoshop and actual other kinds of software.
Yeah.
Nobody in the work environment at least jumps into whatever software they have to use for their job without having to learn it. And arguably even kids who play games in virtual reality on home headsets and whatever. I mean, they can't just jump in and start playing the game. They've got to have experience. I mean, the people like me who can't play games get shot dead in the first frame, never get anywhere
Well,
in a game. It requires a bit of discipline and learning to get
it
started. And
it requires a willingness to a willingness to learn from play and a willingness to learn from your failures. If you're the type
mm,
of person that comes into this environment or any particular type of virtual type environment, and you're expecting that you're just going to know it all from the moment you walk through the door, you're going to have a really hard time because, and I guess a good example is, if you talk about gaming environments, you look at the key controls from Second Life, from Minecraft, from World of Warcraft, from anything from Xbox, Xbox or PlayStation. I mean, a lot of the controls are, while there's some standardization across those particular environments, a lot of the controls can be very different. So as you go
Mm.
from, excuse me, as you go from environment to environment, sometimes it becomes very awkward. Right. So I can't tell you the number of times that I've just about deleted an entire region in Second Life because I've come here immediately after playing a game in World of
Something
Warcraft,
else. Yeah.
and the key controls are much different, right? And you've got the same problem with any piece of software, though. If you look at the difference between the Adobe Creative Cloud Suite and Corel's
Mm.
productivity suite, keyboard controls are very different. The interfaces are very different, even though they do the same functionality. You look at a product like Blender. Blender has its own unique way of doing things, which is just
Mm.
absolutely crazy. You can
Same
do mad things
Unity.
in Blender.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can do mad things in Blender, but to be honest, the largest learning curve on that is understanding the keyboard controls and the mouse and what you can do with that. To me, that's the largest learning curve. Once you buy that, everything else is sort of like, okay, now it's a matter of,
I had faced this problem myself with, especially with science based. There was a lot of pressure on me to learn Unity,
mhm.
and quite frankly, to be honest, those of us at a certain age tend to slow down a bit, and I just had to say, look, I'm sorry, but 20 years ago, the learning curve for this would have attracted me. I'd have worked at it, but just now it's just too much. It's like, this software can do anything and everything. And the best I could do is learn a routine for one particular thing.
Well, the other,
Sadly, I forget his name. He passed on a few weeks ago, but the guy who actually invented copy paste on our
mhm.
computers passed away. And yeah, what will we do without that? Because at least we know. I mean, I know it's slightly different on Linux, Mac, and Windows, but basically it's the Control V, Control X. Well, there's four keys: cut, copy, paste, etc. If we didn't have those, imagine how much more difficult it would be if everything we had to do didn't even have those four keys consistent. So I think that the standards authorities, especially the IEEE people and whatever for virtual worlds. I mean, there needs to be um, a kind of awareness among those people building these worlds that if they want to get users from another world to jump into them, in and out of them, they need to provide some kind of familiarity, some metaphors that will just be almost ubiquitous across platforms. It's not full interoperability or anything. It's just that, why have the WASD keys and the arrow keys, and another place only uses arrow and another one only uses WASD? It is silly. There should be a convention for moving forward, moving backward, moving sideways. It's not something that's platform specific. So why do we have to have different keys in the different
Well,
platforms?
from a productivity standpoint, I mean, if you're trying to get a lot of people into an environment, the more
Mm,
standard you can make things, the more comfortable people can be at the outset, the more productivity that you're going to get out of them as you go along, the less the amount of training that you're going to have to provide to them, because as soon as they become comfortable with the basic,
mm,
most people will generally learn the other stuff as they go along. At the same
yeah.
time, right, the whole idea of innovation is taking the establishment and turning it on its head. So you take a look at something like Blender, and Blender's a really good example of this, where the guys that were responsible for that particular program basically came out and said, something, we want to do all this stuff where if we're restricted to the standard set of keyboard controls, layouts that everybody else is using, we'll never get anything done. So what they did was they sat down and they rethought through everything. Now, it does mean a bit of a learning curve for people new to go into that particular environment.
Mm.
But if you don't have people that are occasionally turning ideas like that on its head, like why do we need to use AWSD in order to move your avatar around? Why couldn't we do something else? The Space Navigator mouse, for example, the way that particular piece of technology works is radically different from the way a mouse works.
Sure, yeah.
And
And
it,
gamepads and
yeah, I mean, it didn't quite take off the way the creators imagined, but there is a large community of people that just absolutely love the Space Navigator because it is so useful. But if you take the average person who's used to a mouse and you sit them down in front of one of these things, they're going to be sitting there, you know, probably throwing it against the wall for 2 weeks before they finally figure it out.
I think this is
It,
probably a case with almost every haptic idea. But leap motion, for example. I mean, sure you can set it up, practice, and realize you can flip from left to right by waving your hand. But because it's intuitive to use a mouse to do this and the other, people are very, probably don't take it up unless it became something absolutely essential. The way you move in headsets and actual virtual reality there is very different from what you do on screen. Um, I actually suspect that the reason Sansar, Linden Labs Sansar maybe did not take off is that it wasn't that necessarily that people in Second Life were interested in a new fancy platform, but because it was so different. It wasn't like a new improved Second Life. It was something else that just felt alien to them. And why not just go back to the world you feel comfortable in? So I don't know, but I think it's down to being quick and easy. I mean, Mozilla Hubs, for example, is probably uh, you know a good example of something you click on. It loads into a web page and you can do elementary things in it, but you have no sense of being in any kind of inhabited world. It can be social, but it's not persistent. And that I imagine could be useful for short meetings and things. In fact, recently it has been used for a lot of the meetings that have been put off because of virus concerns and things. But because it's simple, it doesn't actually have that learning curve, to be honest. So you can actually get somebody in quite literally just by giving them a web link. And there's no, they may need to fiddle a little bit with their mouse to see that they can move, but there's no real kind of learning curve. But I think if you've got something like Second Life and OpenSim and all the rest, you know, um, when you commit to it, you are going to go through a certain learning curve. But I think it's the platforms should try and make it as easy as they can. So if something is almost ubiquitous, they should do their best to accommodate it. I mean, if they have to rewrite something for a completely new feature, fair enough. But who would dare rewrite, cut, copy, paste, and print? They're so ubiquitous that sure you can have 1,000 other keys, but everybody knows that those keys do those things because they're commonplace to virtually every piece of software you can imagine, including a command shell. Um, I don't know. Anyway, let's move on to the crucial thing, which is the conference time. Now,
yes,
your the Virtual World's Best Practices Conference, of course, is accumulation. It's once a year, every spring, and it goes on for 4 or 5 days. I think we're on what, Thursday, Friday, Saturday this year, isn't it? And
yeah,
there's
well, it's
various other events before and after.
yeah, sort of.
Yeah.
The conference itself is actually running for close to a month. Um,
Yeah.
the regions are going to become open to the public on March 16th, where people will be able to come. They'll be able to look at the exhibit, and also at that time, I mean, you can see you scrolling there. The immersive experiences also start on March 15th, and they run to just before or around about Good Friday. So it's close to a month. The actual conference, the full conference itself is close to a month, but the core conference component is only 3 days, and that's
Right.
that's the big piece where most people tend to come to. Right, is the core 3 days of the conference. So We've found over time that because, especially with the immersive experiences, originally we tried to run an immersive experience in a 1 or 2 hour time slot during the course of the main conference itself. And what we were finding was that it just simply wasn't really working. I mean, we would get a few people that would show up to some of these things, but some of the environments would be in Kitely, some of them would be in simulators, some of them would be Second Life, Minecraft. Cloud Party at one point was part of
Yes,
it.
indeed. I remember that.
Oh, I
Um,
remember that one, right?
yeah. And so, I mean, we were really trying to be all over the place, right? In terms of people, because we were trying to encourage people to say, look, come show us what it is you're doing in virtual worlds in education. And they're not just using Second Life, they're using all of
No.
these different places. Science Base is another one that people are starting to use now. There's a few other ones that are starting to gain a little bit of traction. So we want to see all the different things that are there, but to get somebody out of our conference to another venue, right, and then bring them back, we just found, something that's really disruptive, right?
Yeah.
People didn't want to leave the conference because they thought they'd missed something, but at the same time, they really wanted to see these immersive experiences. So ones like the ones that you've got up here, the Friends of the Library, um, we said, something, these really should be their own separate activities and they should be separate from the conference. So what we've done is we've scheduled them at different points where they're not competing with anything else around it. You get an environment like this, which I believe this one's in this one's located in Kitely, right?
Yeah.
So if
Where
you
we are
need
now, actually.
where we are now, right? So, if you've never been to Kitely, it's going to take you half an hour to set up a new avatar, right? So by the time you've got your new avatar set up, you've come in, you found the location that you need to go to, you've now just wasted the first half hour of trying to get to wherever it is that you're trying to get to. So the idea was if we tell people in advance, this is going to happen at this location, then they've got time that they can go in advance of that session. They can get their avatar, they can get set up. If they have to download software, they can download software. And all of these immersive experiences have been far better attended since we
Mm.
did that. So
That certainly made sense. I mean, I know on the Open Sync conferences, for example, where to have a safari where people travel out, or where to have a performance, which is in not even on a separate grid, just a separate region, and the logistics of getting people to move out and then move back and not be distracted and stuff. It's hard, You actually really want to just keep them in one place for the core thing, and then sort of farm them out to the other things as
yeah,
they go. Um, James, I'm going to ask that you take the camera off me for a moment because, according to my clock, it's about time for my stretch. So I'm going to stand
We
up
do the
and
same
stretch
thing in
around.
our organization. We,
Yeah.
even in
Uh,
real life, it's good to have a stretch break if you've been sitting a long time.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Okay.
I'll
So what
stretch
I'm going
with you,
to do,
man.
yeah, we'll have a stretch, but we've got, I'm just checking we've got something on screen while we're stretching. So, okay, Friends of the Library selfie portraits activity. We've got that on screen for the moment. So let's just stand up and do a quick, walk around, and hopefully that is enough for Kitely to register the fact that I'm still here and not give me a message saying, "Are you still here?" They are so funny here, aren't they? Right, okay, hopefully that's good. And now I better look forward again, hadn't I? Where's my alt key? There we are, face forward. Okay, that's good. Right, so I'm going to, if it's okay with you, Kevin, I'm going to scroll down this agenda, including the things that are happening before the core of the conference,
yeah.
just so we can look at them all, and we can just pass through some of them if you want, or you can comment on them if there's anything sort of special about it. Now, March the 15th, that's this time next week, isn't it? It's next Sunday.
It
Is
is.
Friends of the Library.
Yeah. Yeah. So
um,
we got two other things that are happening on March 15th as well. So we've got our we have our press day that we're doing on the 15th. So that's the
right, okay.
a lot of the bloggers and other folks who are out there, actively engaged in social media. They're getting a sneak peek at everything prior to us opening up the doors the next day. And I've got an interview that we're doing with Drac that day as well. So, there's a fair bit happening on the 15th. We're hoping that all the exhibits will be completed by that point, and hopefully we're going to give people a lot to sort of look at and digest this time around, because we're trying to do something very different with the conference this year. So,
Right. Okay, well, moving down, let's see, March 19th. So that's actually, yeah, that's pretty much into the week. We're down to, that's Thursday.
mhm.
Swing era dance class. I presume this is really just a kind of social um, kind of thing. Or, are they actually attempting to train people to dance, or is it just like a fun sort of strap on the animation kind of thing?
To be honest, I'm not going to
You,
know until I get there.
oh, fair enough. Okay. It's like learning about the era and the dance styles, but I think it's I don't know. In full haptic VR, I know they have keep fit glasses and stuff, but there's limits of what you can do in a Second Life type world, or
Mm.
Open Sim here for that matter. Right, okay, let's move on down there. We got that one in. Looks like that one's in twice. Oh, it's two different sessions of the same thing, by the look of it. Okay, on Friday the 20th, Science Circle. Ah, this is more like proper education. Open education worldwide from the Science
Yeah.
Circle. Anything particular to say about them, or participants will be better able to understand the scientific concept through 3D interaction?
Well, I hate to say it, but this is actually the first I'm seeing this along with you. So
Oh,
the
right.
because Lori Vaughn, right?
Yeah.
Lori Mockford, right? She's our programs chair. So she's been the one that's been responsible for looking after the peer review committee and
Okay.
making sure that all of these particular events are, in line with the conference ideals. And so she's been putting a lot of this stuff together as we've been going along. But I know the Science Circle folks are just absolutely amazing in terms of everything that they've done and what they've been doing in Second Life. So, if they're putting together an immersive experience, I'm quite sure that this one's going to be really, really kind of exciting in terms of what they've done there. They've got a really good group of people working with them.
This seems to be another one that actually there's two sessions. There's one at 6 a.m. and one at 10 a.m. So they're
Yeah,
presumably hoping to get quite a lot of people at each. Right, Saturday
yeah.
21st. No, we're still ahead of the conference itself here. The Art of War, Military Art and Photography History. Um, Access to be announced. Yeah, it's not actually clear where that is, to be honest. Um,
Uh,
Second Life or elsewhere. Um,
Johans, that's probably in Second Life.
yeah, and that certainly sounds like more of a class than anything else. Whereas
Yeah.
just a look at photography and art concerned with war. Okay, moving on to 26. Now this is day one of the
Day one.
main conference, isn't it?
It
It's
is.
got a kickoff and a ribbon cutting. That sounds dramatic.
It does. Yes. Our traditional ribbon cutting. So,
Yeah, so Felon Cornwall, i.e. you, will officially start the conference with the ribbon cutting ceremony. You'll also have time to explore and enjoy newly built regions and exhibits. Be sure to find the retro rocket and pick up your swag bag.
yeah.
Hmm.
Now
Oh,
I'll just because I'm going to highlight this right at the moment, because what you're seeing there in terms of that picture,
yeah.
that is the only element that we have at ground level
Uh,
for this year,
Oh, okay.
huh.
right?
That's
So
an interesting. It
yeah,
piques my curiosity. Yes.
Yes, of
well,
course, we haven't seen the new build for
Right.
this
Right.
year,
you
have
haven't,
we?
because we've stripped everything. We stripped everything down to the ground and the
Mm.
virtual ground, and we got rid of everything. It's because every 3 years we do a complete rebuild from scratch,
Yep.
right, ground
Yep.
up.
Mm.
Yep.
And one of the things I've been wanting to do for a while, and the committee said yes, we could do it this time around, which was great, was I wanted to get people to stop thinking about virtual environments as being something that has to be at ground level. Almost everything that we build is based on the fact that it's a representation of other things that we have around us. Our buildings are on the ground, but what happens if you get rid of the ground? What if you just open space?
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
So this is what we've done. Everything is 1,500 meters in the air, and we've basically said nothing at ground level. We want people to use their imaginations. We want people to challenge themselves in terms of what it is that you can do with an exhibit and with an immersive experience when you're not restricted by having ground under your feet.
Well, what's going
That
to happen
sounds
to the main
great.
what's happened to the main auditorium when I have just thin air instead of ocean
You
like last year?
you will have to wait along with everyone else.
But I've got to
I
stand on it or sit on it or something. Okay, I'm joking.
Yeah,
I've just
you keep thinking that.
yeah, I've just zoomed into the picture concerned, so you can see the ocean in the background and a bit of land, and that's it. Yep,
Yep.
that's the entire
We're
earthly part of the conference.
we
This is ribbon cutting, I see, but is it also the landing point?
It is. We're
Right.
giving people we're allowing them we are allowing quote
The
unquote.
landing metaphor survives. All right.
Yes. So we're giving them something very familiar that they can start off with
Yeah.
before we then try to see if we can blow their minds by challenging them after that. So this is the
Yeah.
only piece of familiarity they're going to get for the next 3 days once they get
So
in.
are you doing what we always said needed to be done, and that is get away with the concept of seats?
Right.
Trying to.
Right. Okay. Okay. I remember there's a lot of controversy at this at the beginning of Second Life. Say, why do you need seats at these conferences?
Right.
It's not
Right.
like your avatar legs get tired or anything like
Yeah.
that. And can't there be a new way of sort of doing this?
We're
So,
we're
but of
we're
course, it's a familiarity thing. It's like we're talking now. We're sitting on a seat. It just seems like we should be.
we are slowly going in that particular direction. However, I will let so with regards to the concept of seats, one of the things that we did discover, because we did actually try to put together something where we didn't have really much in the way of or anything in the way of seats.
Mm.
And in terms of a couple of experiments that we were dealing with, that we were finding that people were getting motion sick. Um,
Mm-hmm.
in like even in Second Life, that they were getting motion sick with regards to not having that sense of like where we are right now, sitting on a bench, right? So
Mm.
there's, I've got a feeling that younger people would actually have less of a problem with having no seats whatsoever, right? Like, I mean, if you look at Ready Player One and the dance club, right
Mm.
there where there was no dance floor, it was just you were in the air, you did your thing, you could explore your creativity with regards to not having anything under your feet. But there's also a
That was quite
vertigo.
popular in high fidelity for a while too. People
Yeah.
just flew into the meeting areas. You
Well,
finding somebody, you just had to look up and down. You're never sure what height they were at.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and see that's part of the thing, is that how do you work the how do you work camera controls when you're in that particular type of situation? How do you, if your avatar is bouncing around, then how do you forego the vertigo type problems? So there's going to be some groundbreaking, so to speak, things that we're
Ah,
going to be doing, but there's also going to be some familiarity because we couldn't get rid of everything.
yeah,
And just in the
Mm-hmm.
few people that we had testing things out, we were discovering that okay, something there is something more to our spatial perception than just simply, let's do something, uh, let's do something crazy different just simply because we
yeah.
can, right?
Well, so it's
The,
gradual too, isn't it? When you make changes
oh,
like that. I mean, so each step of change, you normally need something familiar to accompany it to sort of contextualize it.
you do, and every year we try to do something just a little bit different in order to try to expand the concept of what it is that people can do without sort of breaking their I don't want to say breaking their spirit. I sort of, you know, it, not quite in that vein, but I think you know what I mean, right? I mean, it's trying to get people out of their complacency in terms of what it is that can be done with these particular types of environments, and done for a reasonable effort. I mean, this is the thing. I
Yeah.
mean, you want an experience like Ready Player One, like the dance hall area of Ready Player One.
I'm trying to remember. It's actually it's a while now,
Yeah,
but yeah, yeah.
well, actually, I'm referring to that just because I was rewatching it the other day.
Mm-hmm.
Ah,
But
yeah, see, that's
I mean, you've got environments like that, but I mean, it's you're talking millions of dollars in some cases
mm,
for programmers to come in and develop those particular types of environments. Whereas, in Second Life, OpenSim, some Science Space, some of
mm,
these other areas, you can develop something that is comparable, but isn't necessarily going to be at the same level of give you the same degrees of freedom because the amount of programming effort that goes in creating that is so substantial at this point. It's not something that is software out of the box right at the
a
moment.
lot of
Yeah.
people criticize the likes of OpenSim and Second Life for not having the spectacular graphics and stuff the games and things have. And the reason for that is pretty obvious because those games are pre-coded. However much many pathways are in them and however much interaction and multiplayer there is in them, the game itself is a fixed thing. It's a fixed world. It's got fixed things in it that you interact with. It's
Yeah.
written a bit like a book. Whereas, places like here and Second Life, we build the things around us in real time. And the that means it's not just a matter of graphics coming down the line, it's our own actions and things going up the line at speed too,
Hmm.
and then being synced to another or many other viewers, and going down the line to them. And so there's a huge amount of processing power going into generating that real-time multi-way
Oh, it
environment,
is.
and
It.
that means sacrificing some things like graphics or whatever. But I'll just finish because this is what I was going to say. When you are, let's say, virtual's best practice was a grid or a platform all of its own.
Mhm.
There are certain advantages because you can actually almost treat it like a game where everything is fixed. You actually fix it, however experimental it is. You fix it and you code in certain freedoms for people coming, but you don't have to worry about the context of the whole grid it's in because you're only worried about the actual region. So if it's standalone, it's totally in your control, and you can put the emphasis on delivery, maybe for example,
Well,
because it's a
sort of.
conference. Yeah, I mean, it's sort of vague, but I'm just thinking in the future, I think maybe standalone constructs virtually
It
may.
it is very much a double-edged sword. I mean,
Uh,
the benefit of something like that is that you can put a lot of time and effort into creating something which is like over a period of years, which is sort of just right. At the same
mm,
time, technology and software and a lot of other innovation, especially in the area of graphic art and computer design, is moving so quickly that by the time you finally got something almost to the point of perfection, it's now out of date. And now you're
yeah,
missing out on all the other new things that you could have incorporated. And this is part of the reason
true, very
why
true.
we've established this thing to basically say, look, any particular build that we're doing, like we're only going to leave it in place for 3 years because to be quite honest, 3 years from now, everything will have changed. And so we don't want to be stuck in this rut where it's sort of like, we've got one particular build and that's the only build we're ever going to use.
Oh yeah, for
Um,
sure. Well,
we want
yeah, but,
we want to be inside a position where we can constantly grow, we can innovate, we can try new things. And if you're doing something, if you create an environment like we have in something like Unity, you're going to spend an
mm.
awful lot of money and people's time and effort trying to get something like that up and running
Yeah.
just
When
to,
I when I cited that, I wasn't thinking particularly of you. I was just thinking of
yeah.
more generally talking about the way things are going for some people. They will build like a world exhibition or something. They will build
Oh
an
yeah,
event, and it will forever be that event. I'm not saying that it's the ideal thing for every circumstance or every conference.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Well, I mean, and this is one of the things that I really like about Second Life is it Second Life and Open Simulator give us the agility that we can change things rapidly as we go on the fly. I mean, even
yeah.
Sansar wouldn't allow us to do that. Sansar
No, no,
required
exactly.
Sansar. The problem with Sansar is that it did not allow for user created persistent design.
Yeah,
Right?
the
It
very thing that
was
the labs are known for.
Yeah, well, I mean, it
Yeah.
was deliberately aimed at the content creators with the idea that they would create that you'd have professional content creators come in, they would develop a marketplace, people would come in, they would buy stuff, they would treat it similar to, I think he was using, Ebby was using WordPress as being the model,
Yeah.
and but the problem is with WordPress, you have a far greater community of programmers that are capable of coming in, developing content, creating plugins, doing all these other neat things that the rest of the community could use as open source. Whereas in Sansar, everything was geared towards the marketplace. They saw the marketplace as being this is where the money is, as compared to looking at it from the utility of the platform, which is the reason why Second Life is not going away anytime soon, because the utility of the platform is so dynamic in terms of what you can do. Yes, it's not the greatest graphics in the world, but who cares? You can do 100 times more with this environment that you could ever. The average person can do 100 times more with this environment than they could ever do with Unity, that they could ever do with the Unreal Engine.
Oh, absolutely.
You
Yeah.
don't require
But
a
more,
thousand
more to the
different
point, the average
specialized skill
user
sets.
can. Yeah, more to the point, the average user can do it.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
and
they
they've
wouldn't know where to start
constantly
in some of the others.
Yeah, I mean, they've constantly missed that point as being part of their competitive advantage. This
Mm.
this is why nobody's caught up with them, right? And even Sciencebase is struggling because everybody's so focused on that bottom dollar figure in terms of, where are we going to make the money out of it, as compared to realizing that, something, if you expand the utility of the platform to the point where everybody wants to be on board, right? You don't have to make you don't have to make 30% profit margin on a platform like this if everybody is using it, right? It's wonderful if you
Mm.
can do that, but if you make 5% off if you make 5% off 100 million people, or you get a choice between that or 30% off 10,000, which way would you prefer to go? From a profit perspective, you're far better off having a smaller profit margin and a much larger community than you are trying to soak every last dollar of profit out of every avenue that's available to you, right? And that's what made Second Life so successful, and why they haven't been able to capitalize it on it since. I
Mm.
hate to say it, because the bean counters are still running the insane asylum, right? So
Yeah, and there's mm.
I mean,
I don't, I don't.
I
I
would
mean,
love to.
they would have needed a new, updated sort of Second Life Model 2 kind of thing.
Oh God, yes. But
Although
I would love to
as
be on the board of
much,
directors of Second Life of Linden Lab,
yeah,
because I mean, I really think that they have missed so many opportunities that
no.
have
I
just
mean, there's been
passed
so
them
much.
by,
Yeah, I
right?
mean, also, although we're 15 years later, I mean, sort of technological progress is excellent, but
Hmm.
whether we've reached a stage where it'd be viable to build a Second Life 2, as it were, that would had all the same things in it, but was appreciably different or
They
more advanced. I
you
wonder,
you
there's
know
a
what
lot
they should
involved.
you know what they should be looking at in terms of a subsequent product, and it would have done them far more benefit in terms of some of the directions that they've headed off in
Mm,
right at the moment. So coming back to the conference, right? Because I mean, to a certain extent, right, a little crossover between the two. So
yeah.
one of the things that everybody's talking about, XR, AR, VR, right?
Okay.
XR, whatever. Take a letter, put an R after, right? Take your choice, right? But you look at virtual reality, augmented reality. these things are wonderful, right? There's all kinds of really, really cool things that you can do with this. There is jack squat, and I want to put an expletive in the middle of that. There is jack squat in terms of creator tools for kids, for high school students, for university students, in order to go and create content for these particular environments. And the ones that are out there are really, pardon the language, but they're really piss poor in terms of a lot of the creator tools that are out there, right? Linden Lab did something really, really unique with Second Life. What they did was they took these really complicated tools for doing content creation and they brought them down where anybody could use them. With a little bit of time and a little bit of effort, anybody could use them in the environment. And what they should be doing is they should be taking that.
They had the team grid at one point too, which must have been, people like Daniel Voyager just totally started there.
Oh yeah.
So they did actually have that early learning avenue for their own software.
Yeah. But if they took that model and they had applied it to virtual and augmented reality in terms of how can we take these complicated, high-end, really expensive, complicated tools, and how can we bring them down such that a fifth grader can use them to create immersive experiences in virtual reality and augmented reality without having to get a degree in computer programming, right? That's where that was their niche. That was the thing that nobody could compete with them against. And if they were to go back to that, expand upon it, and then expand that into the areas of virtual reality and augmented reality, they would probably be a far greater runaway success than what they've already managed to achieve. But again, the bean counters are in charge of this insane asylum, and they keep missing these obvious opportunities and to leverage what it is that they're good at as compared to what it is that they're, instead of trying to go after, the profit margin, right? So anyway, that's my soapbox for today.
Right, okay. We'll be back with another one shortly. But for, talking of soapboxes, although hardly, we're still on the first day, February 27th.
Yes.
At 9:30 a.m., our first keynote, Dr. L. Robert Feenan. As you can see from the screen I pulled up here, we don't know. We haven't. The program
His bio's not up yet.
Right.
Yeah, that's coming.
The name's vaguely familiar to me. It's just, do you have a instant?
I don't, unfortunately. LV would have.
Right.
And my apologies if I had realized that we were going to go through the program bit by bit. I would have been a little bit more prepared. But
yeah, it doesn't matter. I often do this. It's probably just the first time we've done it with the screen share. Okay, well, well, instead of pulling up the individual ones, which should take a while, I'm just going to start scrolling down. Design for difficulties and disorientating dilemmas.
So this is going to be interesting because one of the things that we've started to see, and Kay, who's a wonderful speaker, and Kay and Chris were part of the committee a few years ago, and just absolutely incredible educators and just phenomenal people with, of course, the education community. They're actually providing a really good example about something that's we're seeing more and more, and we're going to see a few of these throughout the program this year, and that is where education and virtual environments, virtual reality, augmented reality are crossing over in order to help disadvantaged groups to be able to learn more effectively. You'll see a little bit later. There's a session on autism, which I thought was going to be really, really neat. There's been a few others. It's really starting to become more of a trend in this year's program. So this is actually going to be, I think this is going to be very interesting, and this is going to be one of the key things that we're going to see as part of this conference is how these environments are being used to help disadvantaged and struggling student demographic overcome learning difficulties. And so this should be fairly exciting along with a lot of the other ones.
And of course, on Saturday, I'm actually myself interviewing Gentle Herons, so
Hmm.
ties in with that to a certain extent. Right, let's
Yeah.
see, overcoming technical limits of LSL, SL, and OpenSim. This is, of course, the LSL is the script language. It stands for Linden Script Language. Gosh golly, how
Yeah.
imaginative! Which is a sort of JavaScripty type thing that people in Second Life use for complicated scripting. In other words, it's not
Hmm.
building, but if you've got if you've got a thing like a dustbin and you want the lid to tilt off when you touch it and go back on again, that operation is carried out by a script in the
Yep.
object. So
Hmm.
you use Linden Loud scripting by and large for making a script that does that. That's 10:30 a.m. So pursuing the lecture area A. So I guess that's what you might call a smaller side event, really, for people particularly interested in scripting. Right, Out of This World Parade. Well, this sounds like a fairly the parade start. Um,
Yep.
okay,
Social
I'm
event.
sure you've got something to say about this. The annual parade is a great way to start the social events.
Yeah, the social group has a fair bit going on part of the program, and one of the interesting things is that there's a lot of uh, not carnival, but there's a lot of people involved with the social group that also are involved with creating rides and other activities with Inside Second Life. So yeah, and I've already seen part of what it is that they're setting up for this year. Now that we've asked them to think outside the box type of thing, and um, I've seen the setup for what it is that they're doing. I'm really interested to see what it is that they're going to have once the final product's in place, because it looks like um, they're really making good use of the vertical space with inside the social region, and what I've seen so far looks amazing. So once it's done, it should be really cool.
I'm trying to imagine having a parade without any land to parade on. It's
Uh,
just,
I
or
got a
maybe we
rough
have a big pole and just go up it.
I got a rough idea. I think I know what they've got planned, and if they're doing what I think they're going to, because they haven't shared with me, they haven't even told me yet in terms of what they're doing. The only reason why I got an inkling is because I can go in there and I can peek, right? So,
Yeah.
but if they're doing what I think it is they're going to do, then this is going to be unique in terms of what it is that they're doing. They're going to turn the idea of a parade on its head a little bit.
Yeah. On its side or upside down or something like that,
Upside
or
down,
both.
roundabout, yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, well, we'll let that happen. And that's followed also by music and dancing, which I guess is sort of connected, have a parade, then
Our
get
first networking event. Yep.
yeah. Right, 1 p.m. 1 p.m. here. Can SL being Second Life, of course, improve access to STEM education and collaboration for autistic students? Well, this is
Hmm.
presumably the one you referred to when you were talking about autism a minute
This is one
ago.
of a couple. Yeah.
Yeah, and right, so yeah, that's a lecture, isn't it? Yeah.
Hmm.
Quadrivium, yeah, the digital divide of immersive technology, AR, VR, XR.
Hmm.
You've forgotten MR. But then again, AR, VR, MR.
MR, MR,
AR,
mobile
VR,
reality.
AR plus VR plus MR equals XR. That is the idea, isn't it?
There we go.
Right. Okay, a bit of algebra there for you. Right. Now, what's oh, right. Yes, of course. Above the book. Now, you normally do this. Any particular reason you found somebody else to do it this year?
The part of it is that while we've got a lot of really good people, like there's a lot of hours going into preparation of the environment, what have you. But during the day of the 3 days, main 3 days of the conference itself, is my primary role is to make sure that everything runs smoothly. And what we were hoping was that if I was actually, I hate to say it, paying a little bit more attention, then we wouldn't run into quirk. Excuse me. So we figured, something, just because. Because I mean, even when you and I have done this before, right? A couple of times during above the book session, all of a sudden something's gone sideways, and it's sort of like, "Where's Kevin? Oh, he's interviewing Pat." It's like,
Yes,
it's
exactly.
like we need him over
Yeah,
here. It's sort of like, nope, he's not going anywhere. So
yeah, it's very difficult to be
the yeah, so
multifunctional in some things. Yeah.
yeah, so it it was sort of like, something, we would either I need to figure out a way to be cloned, or we need a few more people, or um, right. But I mean, as it is, I mean,
Mm.
we've got like 80, close to 80 volunteers that have been, or will be helping out with this conference in one way, shape, or form, right? Like, I mean, we're expecting 1,200, 1,500 people to be showing up to this conference across 3 days.
Right.
That's a lot of things
A
that can
lot
go
of people.
wrong, right? I mean, as anybody that runs any type of conference knows, right? The larger the number of people that you have, the more things come up that you never expected, right?
Yeah.
As much as you plan and you think everything's going to be letter perfect and what have you, something always comes about that you've never seen before, and it's sort of like,
Mm.
oh, we were so close, we had it, we were almost there, and
It's just
so
more, however much you and however much trust you put in the delegation, the pyramid gets bigger and bigger,
it
and
does, and like I said,
the people at the top have a really hard job keeping track of the
we
thousands at the bottom.
we do, but eventually some of the technology components come down to the fact that there's one person and only one person that can fix something, no matter how many people have the skills to do it, right? So
Mm.
if you've got like the cameras that you have in World here, your in-world cameras, if they were programmed to do some piece of functionality, the only person that can fix it is the person that has ownership rights over the camera, right? So it doesn't matter the fact that you've got 5 different people that can fix it. It's only that one person that has access to be able to fix it, right? So this is where you sort of have that bit of a trade-off between, it's are you doing program, or are you doing support? And because between myself, Letty, Fiery, and Pram are back again this year to help out with the building, right? So and then a couple of people from the 2 main people from the social committee, although there's other people involved as well. So there's 6 of us that are really the core people, and if something goes wrong, I have to go back to those 6 people in order to. I can't go to
Yeah,
anybody else, right? Because nobody else has
the
ownership
core
right.
team. Yeah, the core team. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean,
I
it's
just noticed James had his hand up as if to say something, or was that just a glitch in your avatar, James?
he was poking at the camera.
I was poking at the
Okay.
camera. I was.
Yeah, see,
It was
there we
funny.
go.
It looked like you're putting your hand up. Can I say something,
Yeah,
please?
right, right.
Like, does
I'm
the
on the wrong
camera actually
I'm.
do
platform.
anything?
I'm not
That's
used to
high
you.
fidelity.
I'm not used to you watching the viewer window. That's surprising.
Yes, yeah. Well, I do.
Yeah.
I do at times when
Okay.
I don't need to concentrate on the other one so much.
Yep.
Although, talking of
Yeah.
which, let's move on down here. Okay, so above the book will be an interview with Linda now, saying as what's new, I guess. I must
Hmm.
acquaint myself with Mr. Patch first of all. Right. Freedom, artistic motivation. That's a lecture. Kirsty Hendricks sounds familiar name. Um,
Yep.
and
There's,
after
there's,
that, actually, after one that I can pretty much guess what will happen there, my pal Lobo with her friends from Virtual
mhm.
Harmony. Um, they do the thing, they do the thing, the Mars and the Red Queen thing anyway, so it's almost like they've got something off the shelf ready for this, actually. The connection with Stellar and Interstellar. Which should be interesting. That's in lecture area A. We got a workshop on Dragons, smashing space saucers. It definitely got this a stellar
Oh,
lineup, haven't we?
yeah. Well, like I said, the social committee's got, they love their toys, right? And so, there's going to be lots of toys to play with for people showing.
Okay, then we're followed by the next big major keynote,
Yeah.
basically,
Next day.
which is next day, in fact. Yes, of course. It's Michael Thomas. Now, I know
Yeah.
Heike Phillip is, or Heike, I always get it wrong
Yeah.
introducing it. She, of course, is helping with your broadcasting or your live streaming this year,
She,
isn't she?
yeah, she is. So the virtual languages conference uh, decided to sort of move in with us. So Dr. Thomas is a language professor, as far as I know. And I'm hoping the bio will come up here soon. The but a number of the sessions on the Friday, right, are going to be related to virtual language, V language,
Right.
and so this is one of the key ones that we're going to be seeing.
Right. Sorry. Okay. I was just checking there to see there wasn't a biography yet. Right. Um, Non-profit commons. Salute to the stars.
Hmm.
This is there too, along with Joyce and, well, I guess yeah, yeah, all the usual suspects in that case, actually.
Yeah,
Right. That's the quadrivium. Exploring the future of education and social good. Yeah, basically, this is where charities, non-profits, and things meet virtual worlds. The non-profit commons. I mean, they're obviously not just there, but that tends to be a real hub for that. Virtual conferences and social responsibility. Don't know who this is, Linda March. Um,
yeah. This will be interesting because this actually unintentionally, right? But I mean, this is actually going to tie into a lot of the quadrivium topics where we wanted to
mm,
talk because the committee picks the quadrivium topic, right?
right.
So, and a lot of things that we wanted to look at this year were around the idea of moral and ethical responsibilities around the use of virtual environments with inside education. So, uh, again, we've got a couple of we've had a couple of these particular submissions that just happen to be in line with some of the quadrivium topics as well, which is great. So,
Mm, okay. Yeah, and it's again, it's a coincidence. That starts with talking about global temperatures increasing and stuff, but of course it's appropriate that some of these talks will. Well, I'm sure they will mention the current situation with viruses and things as well. Right, more quadrivium. I'm going to pass through a few of these because they're not exactly highlights, and I'm aware that you don't know
yeah.
fully about every single thing here. Right,
Oh
immersive
goodness,
language
no.
learning.
Unfortunately, LV would have been the
Yeah.
better one to talk about.
Immersive language learning in virtual worlds. This is Heike herself, actually, so that
Yep.
should be good. That's again lecture area.
Hmm.
Um, that's funny. I can imagine walking into or flying into or whatever I have to do in this space. And then I don't know. I've got visual ideas of small areas that are lecture areas, and then the auditorium, and then workshop areas. And my visual of all these things involves ground and seas. So I really don't know. I really don't know what to expect. Anyway, moving on. So Hiker doing that. Workshop with avatars on the edge of space. That sounds like a
Hmm.
movie, doesn't it? Avatars on the edges of space. Yeah, you
Yeah.
should. Oh, that's Leslie, is it?
It's a
Right.
workshop. That's Letty. Yeah.
You should sell that idea to Marvel Comics or something. It sounds like, sounds like a movie, doesn't it? Avatars on the edge of
we're
space.
yeah we're doing that right after the conference. There we go.
Yeah, move over to Star Wars. We got a new
Yeah.
one. Right. Only what we do is real. Let's just do VR. That's odd.
Mm.
Oh, that's our blue. Right. Okay. That
Yeah.
explains why it sounds a bit odd. Yeah. He, in fact, is not native English speaking, so he sometimes comes up with very odd titles. Right. Very interesting guy there. So that will be an art event, I suspect, in many
Yeah.
ways. Um, then some 1 p.m. Live music.
Hmm.
And an art installation called Stella. Oh, this is Betty. Right, okay. Thought that wasn't Art Blue again. So Betty Thureau, who's a Danish artist, is she's in. I keep, I keep coming across her all the while for a while, and then never seeing her for years. She's in Open Sim as well, so she does a lot of art buildings and stuff like that. So that should be interesting. There's lots here. Join the team ready to launch. This is Community Virtual Library again.
Hmm.
Val Librarian, of course. Um, developing criteria for virtuality courses. Again, this will be a technical one, I guess. Lecture theatre. A red carpet and pre-show experience. Royal Opera Garnier. This sounds interesting. Um,
Well, we always usually have at least one artistic, not just the art installation, but theater production and what
performance.
have you.
Yeah.
Performance, yeah, because I mean, it really does. You see the various different theater performances, and it gives you a really good idea in terms of what's possible.
Yeah.
Um, from the idea like what can you get animations to do? How can you do storytelling? How does it, no pun intended, how does it play out, right?
Mm,
And in fact, one of the things that we have is we've got we're working on uh, a larger game um, for the environment, which is going to span all 9 of the regions that we have this year. So we're in the process of getting that set up right at the moment. So again, that's also going to, it's not listed in the program here yet, but once we've got it ready, it will basically it'll be a 3-year story. We're going to be telling chapter 1 of the story this year, and again, the idea of how can you build narration, how can you build social engagement into these particular types of environments, and so the theater piece has always been a uh,
right.
standing component.
So this is actually I've come across a few opera things in Second Life, but these deja
Hmm.
vu are new to me. It looks basically they're doing two by the sound of it, back to back, 5:30 to
Yeah,
6, and then another one from 6 to 7.
hmm,
So a double bill of opera
it is.
for the evening there.
Yeah,
Right. Okay. So actually, despite all the scrolling, we're now on March 28th, which is the final day, the Saturday.
it is. Yeah.
Starting with coffee and chat.
Hmm.
Then a workshop on symbolic modeling. Um, what's on this list? You don't have to go to space for effective PD. Forgive me, but what is PD?
Professional development.
Right. Okay, fair enough. Um, yeah. Uh, isn't a definite Star Trek influence? Boldly go. Yes, indeed.
Hmm. Yep.
Boldly, boldly go where Uh, oh God, I'm watching that Picard show at the moment. It really is the end of the naive Star Trek universe. Right,
Oh
boldly
God,
go.
yes.
So yeah,
That's another story. We'll talk about that some
yeah,
other
we'll
time.
talk about that somewhere another
Yeah.
day. A whole different thing, right? Right, Renee Zinnia there, going boldly. Um, Keynote, here we are. Yes,
Hmm.
yes, yes. This is the Saturday keynote.
Yep.
Lessons learned from 2020 educators in VR. Oh, is
The
this
one that just finished. Yeah.
the one that just finished? Yes, over in
Yep.
VR. No, Alt Space VR,
Yeah.
wasn't it?
Yeah.
Most of it. Although actually, the ones that look best were in the. Oh God, I've forgotten it again. I covered it on the news a minute ago. Immerse, the Immerse platform is showed itself to be really good for.
Hmm.
Is it called Immersive? I got that right. There's so many new ones, I get them confused, but it looks good. Better, it looks more like a Second Life or OpenSim.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, that'd be interesting. So that is. Oh, I see. Yeah. Right. Laurie Fons introducing them. Oh, well,
Hmm.
that should be very interesting. They. It's funny. I mean, the my social feeds were just full of, oh, this is just magic. This is, and educators talking to each other how wonderful this idea was. And I've never been a huge fan of Alt Space VR because I like me fleshed out avatars, but um, it's I've seen some photos that actually the one I saw today I had up which showed it fairly highly populated. On the other hand, there are a couple of others, and but I tried to go in at one point and it just seemed almost empty. Apart from the fact I
Yeah.
don't really like Alt Space VR, but I don't know, it'd be good to it'd be good to hear a good summary of that actually, because it certainly made an impact amongst the educational communities. So. In fact, James and I were talking about that, why you weren't there or were there, but we figured that actually it's by calling it educators in VR, what they mean really is the hardware side of VR. In other words, helmets and multi-immersive environments rather than
Yeah.
just something that's on a 2D screen, um, which would explain why it was awkward for some. Right, okay, moving on then. Soul of a charioteer in virtual orbit around Mars. Well, oh, this is Lear's team again. Oh, they are having fun, aren't they? Um, okay, I don't know what I can say about that. Again, it's Andrew Stricker and Cynthia Lear and Barbara Truman. What's that? Is that their third session already? It's quite a lot anyway. Second Life Squares. Remember the famous TV show? Oh, I don't know if you remember this, but we did that. Metaverse TV back in the day.
Hmm.
We did that program, every week. In Second Life, I think it was called Second Life Squares or something very similar. It's certainly the same program, and the person hosting it was the musician Jewel Resistance, and she was very good at it.
Yeah.
We don't tend to think of her as an artist and musician, but she was actually pretty good at hosting the squares. Right, okay, so that could be fun. And here we are, above the book again. I think I know this one. think I was told in advance about this one.
Yeah.
Yes.
This is gentle.
Catching up with the thinkers. So,
Right.
what the idea here is? Well, one of the above the book sessions each year will be catching up with people who over the past 5 years have won the Thinker Award, I guess.
Hmm. Yep.
So we're doing Gentle Heron this year, and then I don't know who, but it'd be the next person in the queue the year
Hmm.
after. Right. Um, okay. Yeah, very good. So that will, of course, be me interviewing Gentle Heron, otherwise known as Alice Kruger, who runs Virtual Ability, which is sort of where it does a lot of good work in its own right, but particularly it actually coordinates, disability stuff and things in Second Life. So, we could be people who are hard of seeing, people who are hard of hearing, people with mobility issues, which don't always affect the virtual world, but some people still insist on wearing wheelchairs and things. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
fascinating. That's one of the questions I actually had planned to ask her. Actually, is this sort of odd thing of the virtual overcoming. Um, I don't like using the word disabilities, but I will just, overcoming things absent. And the other side of it, in where the virtual world is used to overemphasize things like disabilities. So, there's no point in having a wheelchair in Second Life because at the very environment is overcomes the fact that you're in a wheelchair. Yet, at the same time, on the social level, people like to be seen in the wheelchairs because it's part of their self-expression of who they are. And it's an odd, contradiction almost. But anyway, we better not go into all that now. I'll save that for gentle. Um, okay. Reflection on the need for a moral and ethical reality constituted from three-dimensional immersive digital environments, 3D IDEs. Well, that's a handful.
It
And
is. It is.
is that a Spanish name? I hope it's not going to be Spanish. That would be a killer. No, uh, good grief, during the development of initial digital technologies, the user was an observer entity that, since it was not involved in the mixing of the real with the virtual, did not feel the direct and instantaneous affectation of the use of said technology itself. Oh, he's got to be a professor, this guy, hasn't he, of some sort? Oh dear. Currently, with new technologies, immersion is total, which generates a new problem both with their identity and their perception of mixed realities, which can affect their moral perception and ethical awareness. Oh dear.
I know.
Well,
Yeah.
that's a lecture. It's in lecture
It
to be.
it is. It is.
I think 4 sentences there, and I think the lecture's over for me. Gosh golly. Right. Okay.
Yeah. So I
Uh,
I I I do need to. I've got a hard stop in a couple of minutes. So
Oh, right. Okay. So
yeah,
let's move on. Quadrivium. Okay. Going straight down. More live music performance. Oh, and the closing ceremony, of course, will be
with the
at
Thinker
6
Award.
p.m. And yeah, Pookie Amsterdam hosting, as she always does, and the Thinker Award, which nobody knows in advance, except you
Nope.
probably, will be,
I'm it, and I won't tell anybody.
yeah, you won't tell you. Well, quite. You
I'm
don't.
yes. No.
Mm.
You'd,
What if they
you'd,
don't
you'd
turn
have to show up to
I
find
have to
out.
ask this question. What if they don't turn up?
Hmm?
What if the winner doesn't turn up?
Oh, I think the winner will turn up this year. That that
You'll,
that
you'll,
won't be a problem.
yeah, yeah, all that. But it's like there used to be a TV show in Britain. They probably
We
had it in America too, called "This Is Your Life," and they used to have the family and friends of a certain celebrity in, but they used to surprise them on the spot and drag them into the
yeah,
studio. And there was so much secrecy because they had to get the family, friends for decades sometimes and get them all involved and
we've
yet not
we've
let a hint out to the subject.
yeah, no, we the recipient already knows who it is that they're going to be, but I mean
Oh, right.
we have had a couple of recipients that the date of the presentation's been a bit of a challenge, but so far
Ah,
everything's always worked out. This year won't be a
very good. Okay. So, in 2 weeks' time, or is it 3 weeks, we'll be congratulating somebody on winning that.
we will.
That accolade. Yeah. Okay, and then Ziggy Stardust tribute. That's David Bowie,
Yeah.
presumably, tribute thing. And Dance the Night's Way thereafter. And that's about it. On the 30th, which is the Monday, we have an interactive walkthrough virtual experience.
Hmm.
On the Tuesday, 31st, Mindscape, at Mindscape. Um, is Mindscape a platform? Oh, no, no,
It
that's in
is.
Second Life.
I believe it is.
Right. Okay, but it's in Second Life, the actual thing. It's not
Oh,
in.
is it? Oh, this one is
Yeah,
in second.
yeah. Campbell Hero Walk on the 4th.
Hmm.
Physics experimentation via mechanical systems in virtual platforms. Yes, there's a handful. That's on Sunday the 5th of April, of course, by then. I
Hmm.
notice you rather sensibly haven't got anything on the 1st of April to confuse me.
Hmm.
Right, and Embrace the Suck. What? What kind of title is that? Classic
That's a
World of Warcraft. Embrace the Suck. It just sounds a bit rude, actually.
I don't know.
We don't know what that is, so we disown it. Okay, moving on. April the 18th. This one's, I can't get that one's come. Oh, Volunteer Appreciation Society. That's really for all your party for all your volunteers on the 18th. Right. Okay. So we've gone through all that stuff,
Yeah.
as it were. And
Cool.
where are we? Let's see if I can. Mm,
Well, like I said,
yeah, there
unfortunately,
we are.
I'm
Right.
I'm going to have to run.
Right.
Right.
Okay. Well, good to have had you here. I'm just looking at the time now.
Well,
We haven't had another stretch yet, so we're probably just in time.
you're probably just in
Um,
time. Yeah.
yeah. Okay. So any last words, or just you doing a hard run?
No, I unfortunately I have to do a hard run, but
Right.
the
Okay.
the
Okay.
just simply timing on some other things. But no, I just the I'm looking forward to this year's conference. I think
I'm sure you are.
it
Yeah.
we're gonna hopefully be expanding some opportunities for people to see what it is that they're capable of doing inside this environment, and with luck, the people are going to get a lot of really good things out of this year's conference. I'm
Mm,
sort of excited about it. I mean, there's lots of things in here which are unique to this year that we haven't seen in previous years. So I'm looking forward to a lot of those things.
yeah.
Especially some of the sessions with regards to disadvantaged student populations and how these environments are helping.
Yeah.
Pri-
That's more or less the theme of Friday, really, isn't it? The
Yeah, well, I mean, one of the interesting things, and I'll just leave you with this thought before I have to run here. But I mean, one of the interesting things about anything to do with when a lot of organizations tend to like to shy away from dealing with populations with disadvantage in some way, shape, or form, but yet
Hmm.
all of the really interesting innovations that go into the things that you and I tend to like to, as able-bodied people, right, are capable of going in and working with and using, come out of the innovation that's used to overcome some of these other challenges. And it surprises me how many organizations don't appreciate the opportunities that are available by focusing on some of those groups and then being able to leverage that learning in order to really expand out what's available for the more general populations that don't have these same challenges. So, anything to do with things like autism or overcoming learning disabilities or these other particular types of things, I always find those to be the most engaging sessions because those are the ones where you
Mm.
really get an idea in terms of not only what are the challenges, but what are the opportunities to overcome. And then there's so many other different ways those ideas can be used over and above that. And I
Mm.
always find it's mind expanding whenever you start looking into those particular types.
I did it for Metaverse long before Metanomics. I did a little show for Nick, what's his name, on HUDs and things like that. And I remember from those days there was an awful lot of things that all these virtual toys that were coming on the market that allowed us to do this, that, and the other. And there's a really strong parallel
Yeah,
between that. They'd actually been made in their first form for out of necessity for people who actually needed them. And of course, later on down the line, we just see them as tools, which they are good
they are.
tools,
They are.
but we
So
we, we like them as tools, whereas they were invented out of necessity for certain people. So.
they are. All right. So Mal, I'd like to thank you very much.
Okay, and thank you for being here, and we
Okay.
will look forward to seeing you at the event. Well, we probably won't see you at the event, but we look
No,
forward
no,
to
I'll
the
be
event
around. I'll be around.
in 2 weeks' time, as it were.
2 weeks time.
Right.
Exactly.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's wonderful. Well, thanks for being with us,
Thank
and
you.
we will see you then.
Okay.
And I'll wrap us up now. Thank you for James for behind the scenes and being here too.
Certainly, Mel.
And we well, who knows when Inworld Review will return? When we feel like it, when we've got something to say or something to interview. But it won't be too long, I'm sure. So bye for now, and thanks for watching.